It takes a long time to make a movie, even if a production does completely stay on schedule. So if a scene proves to be more complicated than others, things can get out of control relatively quickly. Every now and again, you'll hear of massive delays and setbacks that emerge mid-shoot. Whether it's due to on-set injuries or a centerpiece action scene eating up huge amounts of extra time, or perhaps a demanding director who just wants several dozen takes to have some choices in the editing room, unforeseen circumstances surrounding a scene can make a movie's production process go right off the rails. Here are some movie scenes that ended up being unexpectedly massive undertakings for the cast and crew. Spidey Senses. Before there was the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Peter Parker swung onto screens in director Sam Raimi's 2002 blockbuster Spider-Man. The film helped usher in the new superhero movie renaissance, since Hollywood was still trying to figure out what comic book movie audiences really wanted to see. Similarly in flux was the state of special effects. Though the digital revolution rolled out through the 90s, CGI was still undergoing the occasional growing pains at the turn of the millennium. Many of Spidey's stunts would be achieved digitally, but they don't exactly hold up when compared to what the webhead gets up to in his newer adventures. Raimi has often spun his fascination with sleight-of-hand magic into low-budget camera tricks, but he was determined to achieve Peter Parker's Spidey sense for real in the film. For a scene in which his newly enhanced agility allows Peter to rescue Mary Jane from a slip and catch her entire airborne lunch neatly on a tray, no computer assistance was used. McGuire managed the trick himself with some adhesive and props dropped strategically from above. Of course, that doesn't mean it wasn't difficult. The shot took 156 takes over a 16-hour shooting day. True Abyss. The true story of the RMS Titanic is often seen as a warning about mankind's hubris. The massive vessel was built to break records and demonstrate English superiority while catering to the wealthiest people, and it was woefully unprepared for the disaster that ensued when it struck an iceberg. During production, James Cameron's 1997 film Titanic seemed destined to fall victim to ambition as well. Cameron intended to set an original love story against the backdrop of a painstaking recreation of the original ship and its sinking. Elaborate sets, difficult conditions, and Cameron's exacting perfectionism saddled the project with a constantly bloating budget and a schedule that spiraled out of control as it became the most expensive movie ever made at the time. Surprisingly, while the intricate ship sets and harrowing sinking scenes provided Titanic's most dazzling moments, the most difficult scenes to shoot involved no effects or recreations at all. In fact, it was Cameron himself who embarked on a dozen expeditions to the real shipwreck, more than 2 miles below the ocean's surface, over the course of 2 years to research material for the film.
And I was struck just by the surreal nature of the fact that I was sitting here on this deck.
On these lengthy and often dangerous dives, Cameron shot extensive footage of the Titanic's present state for use in the movie's opening scenes. The risks paid off as the film became an unprecedented hit, hailed for its grandeur and spectacle and earning more than its due at the box office. But it's hard to imagine anyone else besides James Cameron who'd commit to such an arduous undertaking just to get a few authentic shots. Spielberg's sinking. Not only did Steven Spielberg's Jaws define the modern summer blockbuster, it also demonstrated how to create tension by withholding the reveal of what the audience is afraid of. This wasn't entirely intentional, as the mechanical shark's frequent breakdowns forced Spielberg to show the beast much less than he originally planned. The young director was forced to develop clever ways to suggest the man-eater's presence without the use of the troubled robot. One of these quick fixes ironically led to the most disastrous day of an already beleaguered production. The heroic fishermen harpooned the shark with a series of floating barrels that signal its presence beneath the surface. For a scene in which the ominous floaters circle the boat known as the Orca, the film's effects technicians affixed a pulley system that controlled their movement to the bottom of the hull. Unfortunately, the planks of the Orca weren't strong enough to support this rig, and a quick yank on the barrel's ropes tore a hole in the boat's hull. It began to sink rapidly, sending the crew scrambling to rescue the cast, equipment, and an entire day's footage from the sea. Although this and several other disasters pushed the shooting schedule from the planned 55 days to a whopping final tally of 159 days, the Orca was repaired, the footage was saved, and Jaws went on to reshape movie history. Disney's near disaster. Fantasia, the third animated feature from Walt Disney Studios, is a marvel on every level, particularly in the context of its 1940 production. It may have been underappreciated at the time, but the achievement of Fantasia's marriage of technical innovation with artistic ambition is hard to deny. For the grand finale of their concert feature, Disney and his artists envisioned a climactic clash between the sacred and profane, pairing Modest Mussorgsky's Night on Bald Mountain with Franz Schubert's Ave Maria, and it was quite an undertaking. The visuals for Ave Maria called for the longest single shot in the history of animation at the time, as the camera followed a procession through a densely layered forest and into a cathedral of trees. This meant that a lineup of background paintings had to be set up end to end across the length of a huge soundstage. The scene was completed once, only to have the horrified crew realize they had put the wrong lens on the camera. A second attempt was foiled by an earthquake. All the while, the scene was frequently halted so that the soundstage could be used for Walt's weekly badminton game. Needless to say, the final shot took way longer than anyone expected, and in fact, it was only achieved in just enough time for the film reels to be flown to New York mere hours before Fantasia's premiere. Now that's a close call.